Welcome, everyone. I'd like to start out with a question. Is it better to manifest, to really create an extraordinary life by seeing what you want and going out and getting it? Or is it better to just accept what you already have and come with a mindset that says, I don't need anything at all? So I'm going to be discussing what some people would say are two different motifs. One is let's manifest, let's create an exceptional life, what we really want at an authentic level. And another motif that says, you know what? Nothing at all is needed. Nothing at all is needed. And I'm going to take you through three different meditations. Some of the meditations are focused on one of these thoughts, and one is focused on another. Now, Jim Collins, who wrote the book Built to Last, has an expression that he says it's the tyranny of all, of or the genius of and. So perhaps they're both true. Perhaps it's possible to create and put energy into manifesting and at the same time completely appreciate and accept what we already have. Does that make sense? There are different schools of thought on manifestation. So I've listened to many different podcasts on manifestations, and different people have different points of view regarding manifestation. I'm going to bring some of these points of view in, but one of the things that it seems like most spiritual leaders and people who talk about manifestation agree on is that even if they're both true about getting what we want and wanting what we have, which is a quote from Sheryl Crow, even if they're both true, it's an amazing thing to cultivate the skill of being perfectly at peace with what already exists. Byron Katie says, if you don't accept what is, what you are, what you have, what you're doing, if you don't accept what you are, you lose, but only 100% of the time. Rupert Spira, another spiritual teacher, says, what we are is peace and happiness. That's what we are. There is a story about a man, probably similar to myself, that said, you know what? Yeah, I know the stuff about what we are, but I really need to seek enlightenment. Probably some of you know me and know I've gone off to India and I've gone around the world and I've said, okay, let's study all these spiritual practices. And I've spent hundreds of days of meditation, retreats, silent. So this man said, I'm going to do that. But he had heard of a Zen master that lived in a cave far away. And he found out that that Zen master had the answer to this question, how do I find enlightenment? So he took off on his horse and he went up mountains, down valleys for days, for weeks, for months. And he got really discouraged. And finally, after he was almost ready to give up, he said, okay, I'm ready to give up. And then he sees in the distance this little man by a cave. He's like, oh my gosh, it's the Zen master. It's the Zen master. And he goes with his trusty horse, his steed, And he rides over there and he goes and the Zen master's waiting outside the cave. And he says to the Zen master, "Oh, I've been looking for you for years. And I understand you have the answer to my question. How do I find enlightenment?" And the Zen master happened to be from New York. And he'd say, "Oh, enlightenment. You know what? Go and find your horse." He says, "My horse? I have my horse. He's right here. I got my horse is right here. I've been traveling for years to see you, and this is what you have to say? I already have my horse. Can't you see? It's right here." And the Zen master says, "Yes, yes," and goes back into the cave. What Rupert Spira and many other spiritual teachers will say is if we're seeking enlightenment, there's an issue because, in a certain sense, we already are enlightened. We already are divinity. We already are whole. There's nothing missing. There's actually nothing missing. In the Buddhist tradition, the core of Buddhism comes from something called the Four Noble Truths. And it basically says the root of suffering is when we're craving or when we have aversion. It's what, like, I want this or I don't want that, which we live our whole lives like that sometimes. And so what we say in this spiritual tradition, and many others, by the way, the Vedanas from India also will say, if we get rid of this craving and aversion and accept what we have, we live much more at peace and much more happy. Now, what Rupert Spira says, it doesn't mean we don't manifest. We still manifest, but there's two ways to manifest. One is we manifest from lack and from a need to fulfill ourselves. And one is we manifest from abundance. There's no need for anything. We're already complete and full. And there's different teachers that will teach different perspectives on that. What Rupert Spira would say is that the manifestation comes as a byproduct of being full. I'll share a couple of other perspectives on that as well, but I want to lead you in the first meditation. And by the way, there's all sorts of perspectives from so many different teachers that says we have nothing to lose by appreciating what we already have. So it's pretty hard to argue with the idea that let's first accept what we already have. Does that make sense to you guys? Good. Before we start this meditation, let's just understand what meditation is. Meditation, if you look at the etymology of the word, medi means appropriate, just like medicine. We're taking in something appropriate. And tation, the Latin, is to act. So we're acting appropriately. That's what meditation is. In this meditation, what's really appropriate that we're going to practice is the art of appreciation. So I'd like to start by having you, if you will, just shake out your body, just shake out your hands, okay, and find a really comfortable position. And it's only going to be a few minutes that we're going to do this for. And just find a really comfortable posture. It doesn't have to be full lotus or anything. Just find a comfortable posture. And breathe in to your dantian, to your center of your body, which is 2 inches below your navel. What you can actually do is you can take like 3 fingers like this, and this is the actual center of your body, 3 fingers down. And from this point, from the center, which many spiritual traditions say this is the connection to the universe, this is the connection to everything. From the center, breathe in appreciation, acceptance for everything that is, for who you are, for what you've done, for what you have, for all that exists. And just breathe in acceptance for everything. And in the out breath, breathe out surrender. Just let go. Nice, good. Breathe in appreciation. Everything is exactly as it is. Perfect. And in the out breath, surrender. Breathe in appreciation through your nose to that point 2 inches below your navel. We're not filling ourselves up with appreciation. We are appreciation. We are happiness and peace. And the out breath, we just surrender to that. Almost every master, whether you believe in the art of manifestation or just accepting things where you are, almost every master will say this is the first step, no matter what your perspective is on that other question. Accepting what is. Breathe in what is. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Amazing. I'll share with you when I'm appreciating. I'm calling you from beautiful Cabo San Lucas. That's the sunset over the ocean in Mexico. But wherever you are, is perfect. Let go with all your muscles and breathe in acceptance. We are whole. We are complete. There is nothing lacking. Nothing lacking. And we surrender to what is. Nice big deep breath into the nose and into our center. That's perfect. Every breath in, say the word appreciate. Every breath out, say the word surrender to yourself. And if you want, you could do one additional thing. It's a muscle exercise. What you do is you take this muscle here and this muscle here, and you move it up like this, if you want. A few more breaths. Appreciate, appreciate, appreciate. This is such a magical and infinite and difficult skill doesn't really make sense why it's difficult. Because we have this life, we have this breath. Whatever our life is, we can appreciate. This moment will never occur again. Appreciate it with all your being. I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you. So, this is a meditation practice that you could do at any time and any place. You don't need an hour or 20 minutes or even 5 minutes. If you just breathe in 3 breaths, I appreciate in the in breath, I surrender in the out breath, can make tremendous difference in our lives. I know this from my own experience. And quite frankly, I have had my own struggles in practicing this. So I've had big challenges, and I'm sure many of you have had big challenges. And we say, well, what happens? Wow, my brother died at 27. That happened. It was horrific. And I've had financial crises, and I've had family crazy things. And how do you just appreciate life then? Well, Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, talks about him being in a concentration camp and saying, "Yeah, how do you appreciate it when you're in a concentration camp?" And he says the key in the search for meaning is still to be with what is. So many people wanted to escape, and that escape and the resistance to being in the concentration camp made things worse for people. He said, lean into the unbelievable challenge of surviving in a concentration camp. And he wrote a really amazing book, Man's Search for Meaning, about that, to say, whatever our circumstances is, lean into it, be with it. Because what's the alternative? Escape, not being with reality? There's a time that I went to a very remote island in Fiji. And I took many boats out here. It was a long time ago. And in this island, they didn't have any currency. They didn't have electricity. They didn't have power. They didn't have, they had nothing material. And the chief's daughter I got close with just as a friend, and she was crying by the stream. And I got to know her, and I saw her crying by the stream, and I said, "Oh, what's the matter?" And now this woman was about, I don't know, about 5'3", weighed about 250 pounds. Really, really big woman, huge. And she looked at me and she said, "Len, I'm the chief's daughter." I said, "Yeah." And she said, "The chief's daughter has to be big, and I'm not big enough. I'm not my body. I mean, all they have is their body." And she said, "I'm not big enough." And this really happened. I had this conversation, and I said, in my culture, you would be considered really, really obese and really fat. And she said, Len, you're only saying that to make me feel better. I couldn't convince her that she was big enough. Now, in other cultures, people might look at us and say, "You live in the United States and you want more money? What? What? What?" What? Haven't you even read the studies that say the people that actually make over a certain amount of money are actually less happy? Like if you're at either extreme of too much money or too little money, you're actually less happy according to many studies that they've done. Uh, and yet you want more money. You're already fat in a different way. And yet I've fallen into that way of thinking. Oh, more, not enoughism. So with that said, I want to go to the next part of this to say, so let's say we are complete and full. We're already complete and full. Yet there's another argument, another teacher I studied with, Dr. John Demartini, who wrote over 250 books. And he said our voids create our values. So when we create and when we manifest and when we want something, it comes from what we lack. If we're in the desert and we have plenty of money, but we don't have any water, water becomes way more valuable. And we need to go after that. So that would be a different argument to say, okay, great, we're complete. But now let's get some things. Now, many people who talk about this subject, and I know about from my personal experience, is we're kind of like tuning forks. And if we're coming from lack and we want things, then there's a certain energy of that tuning fork. So when you hit a tuning fork and there's another tuning fork of similar frequency, they'll both resonate, or a guitar string and another guitar string, they'll both resonate. So if we resonate, we are vibrations, we are a certain frequency. If we resonate in fullness, we can attract fullness. If we resonate with void or with lack, there's a chance we could attract lack. However, I also know through my personal experience, it is possible to create from lack. It is possible. I have published a few books. I've had a successful career, quote unquote successful, in the computer industry. And a lot of what was driving that was oh, I need to be more. And yet, that type of manifestation, I know from my own experience, is quite painful. And not only is it quite painful, but we train our minds so that no matter what we get, it's never satisfying. As opposed to another way to train our mind is to say, we are complete. No matter what, we are complete. And from this completeness and from this tuning fork of abundance and energy, we say, okay, now let's see what we'd like to create. So even if it's true that you can manifest from lack, it's also quite painful. And why live with unnecessary pain? Why not manifest from completeness and be a tuning fork of abundance and wholeness? So this next meditation is what we call inquiry meditation, or in Zen, we would call it a koan. A koan is a question designed to bring us to deeper consciousness. And the koan in this case is, what would you like to create? What would you like? Now I'm going to leave it to you in this meditation to decide. If you want, you could say, hey, I really need this thing, and I want it. Although I've just pointed out that if we're coming from this need, from this craving, there could be tremendous suffering that way. Or I could say, you know what? I am complete. I don't need anything. And in this completeness, I'm going to create. Like, for instance, when Buddha got enlightened, they said, okay, he could live the rest of his life alone and happy and peaceful in the woods. But the energy that he had was such to say, no, I want to share it. I want to be of service to people. but it wasn't coming from an ego-based lack, not enough, separate place. It was coming from a holistic, connected, abundant, infinite place. So I'll leave it to you to say, okay, be in the place that you want. But what I suggest is be in an abundant place when you look at creation. So I'm going to start out this second meditation of inquiry of what do you want with an abundant place. And we're going to go into the first meditation, but then we're going to switch over to on the in-breath. Come and say into your heart, what is it that I'm called to create? Now, the first meditation below the navel is actually meant as a grounding meditation. I've studied a lot of martial arts, and in martial arts, you ground below your navel. And then the second meditation, we're going to breathe into our heart, because there's so much research that our heart knows deep down what's calling us. So the first meditation, breathe in this I'm whole, right into the center. I am whole, I am complete, I am abundant, I am a tuning fork resonating with abundance. And you are, and I am. We're infinite. We're a spark of divinity, spark of dharma, spark of not knowing. And we surrender to this. And then the second meditation is breathe in into your heart. What is it that's calling me? What would I like to manifest? And in the out breath, notice the feeling. So for instance, I can say, I'd like to manifest sharing how to live well, like I'm doing with you today. And my heart, when I breathe out, is really in joy about it, actually. It's really lovely. But for you, when you breathe in, what's my calling? And just ask the question without any pressure. What am I called to create? So we're not just separately manifesting. Ego manifestation is when it's just me. The spiritual, being spirit-led, is when there's this other thing called everything else aside from this body that we're all connected to. Let's breathe in from an authentic, from a deep level. What am I called to do? Now, if you have a pen and paper, even on this meditation or after the meditation, it's actually useful to write it down if you would like. Write down what comes up. And by the way, if nothing comes up, that's okay. What am I called to do? What would I like to manifest? What is it that I'd like to create in my life? Perhaps I'd like to create something artistic, something in writing or in painting or in music. Perhaps I'd like to manifest enjoyment. There's nothing wrong with manifesting enjoyment. Maybe there's physical things that I'd like to manifest. Maybe there's circumstances I'd like to manifest. Maybe there's a relationship I'd like to manifest. Either a partner or a family member or friendships, or maybe there's growth I'd like to manifest. without attachment, without need, without this oh, I need that. Without that, just what comes naturally. For me, the idea of sharing thoughts and having wonderful discussions, and I'm going to leave some time at the end so we can have a little bit of discussion, is is just calling, calls to me. What calls to you? Breathe it into your heart and see what the feeling is. Both the emotional feeling and the physical feeling in your body, physical sensation. What calls to you? And if there's a resonance, you could even do a further inquiry and say, why does this call to me? I do a bit of writing and I say, well, why do I want to write? Well, because it's a really wonderful way to share, connect, love connecting. What is it that calls to you? Not out of need, not out of pushing, not out of craving. But why not create amazing things? It's just natural that we'll do it, especially in a place of abundance. So breathe into your heart. What calls to me? Breathe out the feeling of this. Let's do this silently a little bit. Every in-breath, breathe in the question, what do I want? What calls to me? What would I like to create? And in the out-breath, notice the feeling. There's not even any need for an answer. Just breathe in the question. The question is more important than the answer. Sometimes if we breathe it in and we ask, why do I want that? Sometimes a deeper, more authentic want comes up. And we could ask why we want that. And sometimes a deeper, more authentic want comes up after that. When I've asked this question, sometimes I say, oh, I want to be of service. Why do I want to be of service? Because it feels good. And then I meditate on that. I say, oh, it's not about feeling good or bad. We always feel good or bad. The deeper one is peace of mind, whether I feel good or I feel bad or whatever the feeling is. Let's be at peace. Just allow whatever wants to come up from your heart. Very important you connect in with your heart. There's 50 times as much energy that goes from your heart to your head as the opposite. From your heart. What would you like to create from your heart? If you have paper and pencil, it's sometimes useful to write down those things and why. If you don't, perhaps you write it later. If something came up. Something doesn't come up, stay with the question. Breathe in this in tomorrow for a few times and say, what is it I'd like to create? Knowing that I'm already whole, and yet I'm going to create this. Third meditation is, let's say something resonates for you. I want to start a business. I want to sell my business. By the way, I used this meditation to actually do that recently, to sell my business. So I would breathe in this idea, okay, I've been in business for decades and I'm going to sell my business. Um, and then I get this call from a really big company, and a couple of years ago, that's exactly what happened. And I could free myself up to do the work I'm doing with you, this type of work. Um, Now, some um, seminars I've seen say, if you decide you want to do something, there's all these seminars on the law of attraction, and if you decide you want something, then it is done. And there's a difference of opinion on this too. In my experience, if we put attention on something, it helps it a lot. And if we put a lot of attention, it helps it a lot. So I put a lot of attention on selling my business, and it helped it a lot, and I succeeded in doing that. However, like I was saying before, there's something else that exists other than this, which is the rest of the universe. And there's an expression in Judaism that says, man planned and God laughed. God meaning everything else. So it doesn't necessarily mean we get what we want, just like the Mick Jagger song. You don't always get what you want, but it helps a tremendous amount. And this is backed up by Buddhist philosophy of saying there's another philosophy called the Eightfold Noble Path. And what it says is, in order to really live without the suffering, to live really well, there's a few things, but a couple of them are right thought. And right thought leads to right action. So, this thought that we could put into manifesting in many, many deep spiritual disciplines, it says, yeah, it leads to some manifestation. Now, if you combine thought with feeling, then it's really powerful. And some teachers will say that thought is like the electricity and the feeling is like the magnetic force. So the whole universe is made up of electromagnetic energy. And if we think a thought in and we resonate out the feeling, it comes back to us being vibrations and at a certain frequency. And if we have a frequency, a magnetic frequency through our feelings that works like a magnet, so it does attract. It doesn't mean that things are guaranteed. And by the way, there's another thing called right action, which you also have to take action on these things too. Uh, but to really loosen the jar, to really grease the skids, to really get things going, and to create momentum, we could do so much by breathing in a thought and sending out the feeling. So if I breathe in the thought to say, I desire to do more of what I'm doing now, share, help, connect, how to live well. And then I have this feeling of um, just peace. Um, so I send out that peace. This is what I want to do. When I did write one of my books, I remember saying, I have this thought. I want to create this book, and if a single person doesn't read it, I'm okay. I just want to complete it for the sense of completion. And I completed it, and I attracted that, and then a bunch of people read it, so that was added bonus. But that kind of brings out this idea when you have that feeling without need, without this lack, or without this pushing or craving, just, okay, this is what I'd like to do, and put attention on it. Attention matters. Put attention on what you like to create. Breathe it into your heart again. And this time, with that feeling, send that feeling out from your heart. I want to be of service in an orphanage. I want to create a work of art. I want to love my family. I did this with my children. I had this feeling I want to have children, and it was, even in that case, it was a knowing. It wasn't even a want. It was just a knowing. And I have two beautiful daughters. One of them that's on this call right now. Thank you, Danielle. And it was a. I know this when I first met my wife, and we were dating, and I said, this is what I'm projecting, and I was just so happy about it, and it hadn't happened. And she said to me, my wife, who I was dating, said, "You know how this works, don't you?" And and I said, "Yeah, it works that you bring in a thought, and you and you have a feeling, and things are more likely to happen." Bring that thought into your heart. An authentic. There's a difference between a want that is ego led, that is separate, that is um, not very deep, and a authentic, spirit led, connected, something that we're called on, that's not just about us, me, me, me. Nothing wrong with enjoying, but what is it that's something that's authentic, wholesome, healthy, to bring into our heart? And what is the feeling? Is it light? Is it heavy? Is it shining? What's the feeling? That feeling is like a magnet. Nice. A few more. Bring in the electricity. The world is like a classroom. It's an open class. And there's so many things that are hanging out in that classroom. And you might be called to say, "Oh, I'd like to write, or I'd like to, or I'd like to have children, or I'd like to go traveling, or I'd like to." And we can follow that flow and allow those things and bring them into our hearts. And co creating with the universe. Bring it into your heart. If there's, if you're at a point where you're saying, I don't know what I want, narrow it. Say, there's certain areas of life, like for instance, what do I want spiritually? Just say, what do I want spiritually? What do I want in my family? What do I want friends wise? What do I want for health? What would I like to create financially? What would I like to create career wise? What would I like to create intellectually? What would I like to create for fun? Or we could even narrow it more. What would I like to create tomorrow? What would I like to create right now? What would I like to create in the next month? And if we put attention on it and project the feeling, we are attracting it toward us. Don't forget about the last step, which is critical. It doesn't just happen from magic. We take actions from that too. Right action. Right action. That's why it's helpful to write it down, to write down the why, write down what you want. Couple of more breaths. I want an amazing relationship with my wife, with my daughters, which I already have, and yet I want to keep on facilitating that. I want a clearer and clearer mind. And I know at my deepest level, my mind is already clear. And yet at a relative level, okay, let's keep unclearing it more, even though it's not needed. What is your want? What is your want? Might not even be the right word. It's like, what would you like to create not with any strong attachment or desire? What would you like to create? You're in a candy shop. What flavor candy do you want? If you feel that there's a strong need for something, then and you're in a difficult situation, then okay, create that and do it with as little craving or aversion as possible. There's little need and more, oh, this is just so. When you're creating that feeling, create the feeling as if this is already existent. My clearer mind already exists. Nice. Nice. So we've gone over 3 meditations. The first is breathing in appreciation and breathing out acceptance from the hara, from the central balance grounding point. This is a really useful meditation, I find, for any practice, martial arts, yoga, grounding, realizing. That's why they call it self-realization, because it's not about being someone different. It's about realizing who we already are. Second meditation is, okay, inquiry, koan. What is it that I would like to create? And being with the question, what comes to me? Use your intuition. What comes to me is love. I want to share love. What comes to me is I want to create a work of art. What comes to me is I want to start a new venture. What comes to me is I'd like to practice this art of guitar that I'm working on. Just be with the music. What comes to for you? And the third meditation is okay, there's something that I would like to manifest. bring it into your heart and resonate from your heart the vibratory effect. Be the vibration we are to help attract and facilitate that. And then there's the fourth meditation, which we haven't done, which is now act on it. Now act on it. Okay, I talked about playing guitar. Okay, practice. Practice. Oh, I talked about my family. Connect with my family. Hi, Danielle. And keep on developing that. So we have a little bit of time for questions and comments. If you want. Like I said, there's no need for anything, so you don't have to do any questions or comments if you don't want to.
I have one. How do you recommend that we keep a practice like this going if we're new?
Oh, great question, Akriti. Incrementalism is the key. What I recommend is 1 minute a day, which I found it to be extraordinarily difficult for most people to do 1 minute a day. Akriti and I know each other from data conferences, and she's seen me talk to many data management professionals where I say this, and I've talked to thousands of professionals, and I say, I want to see you do 1 minute a day. And people, some people can do it, but a lot of people can't do that. So if you're new, 1 minute a day, pick one of these meditations, just one of the meditations. Oh, I'm going to do inquiry. I'm going to do appreciation of what I have. Oh, I know what I want. I'm going to manifest 1 minute a day. If you can do that for 30 days, then do 2 minutes a day. Now, if you already have a practice, let's say you have 20 minutes where I just do like Zazen, you might want to break the rules of Zen. I have some Zen practitioners on the line and say, you know what? Let's break Zazen and put in a little bit of the manifestation meditations I've suggested for a couple of those minutes out of the 20 minutes or out of the hour. Our teacher in Zen, Jumpo, would always say, break the rules, even his rules. Great question. Thank you, Akriti. What else? Questions, comments?
Hey, Len, I got a question for you. First of all, thank you very much. I really appreciated this. Um, what are your thoughts in terms of establishing that routine? Do you find that end of day, morning, sometime during the day to establish that routine?
Yeah, there's benefits of all of it, and I think it depends on the person. We're all unique. There is a huge advantage to waking up first thing in the morning because it's the first thing you do, and you can prioritize it and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I get up and I do this for 1 minute or for 15 minutes or whatever you want to establish the practice."
Hmm.
Uh, there's also a benefit of doing it at night because it's right before we go to sleep.
Yeah.
And some people have difficulty going to sleep at night. And what I say to that is wonderful. Do this. And if you're up for hours, great. You have hours of practice. Keep on doing this. So you don't have to be in a cross-legged position. Just lay in bed and do one of these meditations as you go to sleep. It's highly effective right before you go to sleep, and it's highly effective first thing in the morning. So if you
Okay.
can, first thing in the day and last thing in the day, and then if you can, and Jonathan, you and I have both run businesses, and things get crazy. Take 1 minute out and do that. Uh,
Mm.
what I also say is find somebody that at the data conferences. I'll tell people, you know what? Text me. You're the one character, and when you do this. Uh, I just went to the last data conference, and one of the people there is texting me each day and meditating for a minute because I told the whole group, text me each day. It's like, then you sure this is okay? I love it. It's
Yeah.
great. Or text somebody else because there's
Hmm.
some accountability. Great question, Jonathan. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to make an announcement also to say, so I'm going to be offering different types of meditations every Wednesday, the first Wednesday of each month from 6 to 7, same bat channel, same bat time, the same, I'm sorry, same Zoom time. Uh, so you already have the Zoom channel. If you would like to do it, um, and it's not necessary, but if you don't mind emailing me and just saying, you know what, I'm going to join this week. It's kind of nice to know how many people I'm going to have.
Hmm.
Um, just send me a text saying uh, you know, yes. It could be shortest text, shortest email that you want, and say, hey, I'll be there on Wednesday. Um, but you already have the Zoom channel, and you'll probably get updates because I'll be changing the next thing on your calendar. I put it on your calendars. Next time, I'm going to be talking about unreasonable enjoyment. Enjoyment for no reason. How do we create wholesome, healthy enjoyment for no reason? And there's some specific practices. Of course, we could go out and be rowdy and have fun and get drunk, but that could be enjoyment, but some of the deepest enjoyments I've ever had has been in Korea studying with masters and being in the center of the room for I have no idea how long in this place where I'm completely connected and I lose track of time and space and it's not only enjoyable for that moment, however long it's enjoyable for my whole life. So I'm going to be talking about that next month, and each month I'll have a different theme. What you can also do is join every Monday from 4:30 to 5:30 Mountain Time. There's a different session. Paul and Angelisa, who are on the line right now, come every Monday or most Mondays, and there we meditate for a half hour. So it's a bit deeper of a meditation, and then we do a check-in, and then I give a little talk um, after that, and that's some delightful people. And there on my website zenwithlen.com, you could actually register for that, and you'll get the Zoom link. It's a different Zoom link than this.
Hmm.
Uh, if if anybody wants to give me any feedback afterwards, or by the way, if you want to connect, if you have any other questions, and you want to do this, but I'm going to challenge all of you to say, hey, if you're new to this and you want to do it, try the 1 minute or longer. And my line is open. My email is len@zenwithlen.com. If you want to chat or talk, just let me know. And thank you. So appreciative to all of you. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thanks, Len.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thanks,
Bye.
Len.